Well, I told you at the start of the show, we have a guest joining us. He is joining us. I never heard the end of the story if he's joining us by Skype or phone, but however, he is going to join us. We're going to have joining us Joel Gilbert. And he is, as you've been on the show before, he's a filmmaker in Hollywood, and he is an investigative journalist type filmmaker. And he is the one who produced the movie and then the book called The Trayvon Hoax. It is making enormous headlines, and it's actually, the beautiful thing is, as he works to spread what he found out in investigating the Trayvon Martin case that gave rise ultimately to his book and his movie this year, is really helping to stimulate the American political conversation about what happened around the Trayvon case and where we are today in our society in terms of race relations. So I think we have Joel. There he is. Hi, Joel.
Hi, great to be here. Thank you.
So happy to have you. Well, now that I have you, this is Joel Gilbert, and he, as I mentioned, he's been on our show before. I want to ask, we have Travis the Wonderful yet sitting in again today for Matt, who is not feeling well. But Travis, there's a clip I sent you this afternoon. It is just a short clip of the Trayvon hoax film that I want to ask you to play, and then we're going to talk to Joel Gilbert.
Trayvon Martin was ground zero for racial division in America.
Trayvon Martin was killed for wearing a hoodie, quite frankly.
I decided to produce a film on how the case affects American politics to this day. It had started as a self-defense case, but then, out of the blue, they found Trayvon's girlfriend.
She is a minor child.
This phone witness led to the most racially divisive trial since OJ. My investigation started with Trayvon's 750-page cell phone records. I made a shocking discovery. Trayvon did have a girlfriend named Diamond Eugene, but she wasn't the witness at the trial.
Okay. I know we have Joel to talk with us, and I know we just played that clip, but I wanted to start, Joel Gilbert, the maker of Trayvon Hoax movie and book. I wanted to ask you to try to say, in your big investigation you did of the background of the Trayvon Martin killing, and then ultimately you were looking into the political impact of that event. Tell us again, in your own words, what the big discovery was you made that turned the whole case on its head.
Okay, well, people, to remind your audience, Trayvon Martin was shot in an altercation February 26, 2012. The police investigated for almost 3 weeks, 911 calls, physical evidence, eyewitnesses, and they said it was self-defense after 3 weeks. Not stand your ground, just self-defense. It was over. Al Sharpton came down, and then the family attorney, all of a sudden, a week later, held up a digital recorder at a press conference and said, "We just found Trayvon's girlfriend was on the phone with him, and her name is Diamond Eugene. She's 16 years old, and she said a couple of things that seemed to contradict all the evidence." So Trump said, "We got all the evidence now." Next day, Barack Obama came on board. "If I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon." State of Florida is pressured into appointing a special prosecutor. 2 weeks later, they come to Miami, and I got the unredacted documents. They actually go to Diamond Eugene's house, that's her address, to interview this girl that was supposedly on the phone. And that's when 18-year-old Rachel Gentile shows up and says, "Oh, Diamond Eugene's my nickname." And they go ahead and take her statements, I've got that recording also, and use her statements to arrest Zimmerman. And of course, she shows up in court a year later. So I started by looking at Trayvon's 750-page cell phone records, 3,000 text messages, 3,000 photos. And I discovered that he's texting photos back and forth with Diamond Eugene, and it's not Rachel Gentile, it's a different girl. So I set out to say, look, if I can find this real girl, Diamond Eugene, find out why she talked to Trump, why she bailed out, and was she substituted for Rachel Gentile, and I can actually meet Diamond Eugene, I'm going to make a film and talk about how this case affected the country, because it really was ground zero for racial division and all the negativity we've had in race, and even kind of fake news started the modern era from this case. So I made the film that revealed this entire story was really a hoax.
I love that. Was a great summary, and I really want to dive and talk about. So now where we are, actually, one more thing about this story, the case. So you had the Trayvon Martin family trying to push the narrative that he was skipping along home from the store with his Skittles and was confronted, and that the aggressor in the confrontation was George Zimmerman. The family's trying to say George Zimmerman was the aggressor, and George Zimmerman's defense, which the police actually originally agreed with, that's why they said they weren't going to prosecute, was that actually Trayvon was the aggressor. So this young girl's testimony made the difference made the difference whether the prosecutor thought they could make a case. It wasn't just a tangential minor witness. It was a case changer. Right, go ahead.
This was it. Now, this was it. Diamond Eugene, I found out from her social media, she's actually tweeting the entire time. Even after Trayvon is shot, she's tweeting about it, and she's resisting pressure from Trayvon Martin's friends, family, and attorney to come and make a statement incriminating Zimmerman. She won't do it. And she's put under tremendous pressure, and she's even tweeting about it. The pressure she's under, she acquiesces and does that phone call with Benjamin Crump, where she simply agrees with everything he says. She says the same narrative he put out in the media. What could she do at 16? Now, when they want her to come and tell this story to the police, which she knows is not true, she bails out. So only with that phone witness that contradicted all the evidence were they able to get an arrest in the first place. And it's just a ridiculous thing that they allowed to go forward, but there was a bigger agenda, I think, influencing this, because the black vote was not in the tank for Obama in 2012. Unemployment 50, 60, 70% in urban America, illegals coming in, taking over jobs, companies were leaving, taxes going up. So the Obama DOJ actually sent the Community Relations Service, allegedly they were going to investigate. Instead, Judicial Watch pulled the documents. They actually were organizing protests, the DOJ. And then, of course, Crump, with this recording, he said, I'm not going to give this recording of Diamond Eugene to the Sanford police. I'll only give it to the FBI, the people that were organizing protests. So there was a much larger agenda. And at the same time, don't forget, the Obama administration was using the IRS to break up the Tea Party movement, the conservative grassroots. So they were using the tools of state to maintain power. And that's what we just saw in the AG. It's going on right now. They use the FBI, DOJ, CIA. This is the socialist playbook. Socialist policies don't work. So they have to use the power of state to stay in power. And that's what was going on, and I think influenced this case.
Okay, I want to just capture something you said and just make sure our listeners are following this. Between the time of the incident where Trayvon Martin was killed and George Zimmerman said it was all in self-defense, and that's what all the evidence showed until this other witness came along. But at that time, our tax dollars are being used by the Obama administration via the Department of Justice, sending people down to Florida to investigate, which really meant to agitate, to stir people up, to stir people into demanding a trial or demanding a further investigation and demanding justice for Trayvon. So our tax dollars, our government was using their resources to stir up racial tension in Florida. Is that fair?
Well, it goes beyond that. They were demanding the arrest of an innocent person without cause. Al Sharpton, who was Obama's advisor, was down there. He was in on it too. Benjamin Crump held a rally with Al Sharpton. It's in the movie. And he says, we called up to New York City and got somebody with a track record. Well, Al Sharpton's track record is race hoax, Tawana Brawley, Crown Heights riots, 1991, 1995, Freddie's Fashion Mart massacre. This is the guy they were bringing down there. He was Obama's advisor. So there was definitely a larger agenda that was used to divide the country and inflame black voters to come out for Obama. And we know that Black Lives Matter started because of this. They went to the White House too. All the division, Ferguson, Missouri, hands up, don't shoot, all this nonsense that the media ran with and still do so to this day without question. So I looked into the public documents, it's all there.
I'm sorry, I want to mention one thing about the lawyer involved. So we're going to get to Zimmerman's lawsuit in a moment, but Benjamin Crump, C-R-U-M-P, Crump, he was the lawyer actually hired by Trayvon Martin's family. He's not a prosecutor. He was just hired by the family. So is it your belief, based on what you've seen and investigated, did Benjamin Crump know from the start that the witness that the prosecutors, put on the stand and let her testify as though she really was Diamond Eugene when she really was somebody else? She was this Rachel Gentile. Did Benjamin Crump know that during the trial?
Well, we have a smoking gun on Trayvon's mother, Sabrina Fulton. It's in the movie.
Yep.
And by the way, if you go to thetrayvonhooks.com, you can see the trailer and live stream it or get the book or ebook, DVD. But we know Sabrina Fulton knew about it and did not say anything or stop the trial from the get-go. Crump, we have a lot of indications that he knew or should have known based on him being the one that interviewed Diamond Eugene. He seemed to indicate in one interview he had met with her. With Diamond Eugene, he told Matt Lauer she's a 16-year-old teenager. Her voice is so very different than
Yep.
Rachel Gentile. And he spoke to Diamond Eugene 3 days before. I have the phone records of Diamond Eugene. 3 days before they came to interview her, Diamond called Crump and they spoke for 3.5 minutes on a Saturday morning. I wonder what they could be talking about. Then Rachel Gentile shows up 48 hours later pretending to be Diamond Eugene. So I'd certainly like to know what Crump knew for sure. But bigger question also, what did prosecutors know? They had all this information for a year. You could see that Trayvon is texting messages back and forth and photos. It's not Rachel Gentile. They had this for a year. They have FDLE. They have investigators. They have subpoena power that I wish I had. 3 months out. How could they not know? And does that explain why these attorneys told me they had to spend 2/3 of their time in court just putting sanctions on the prosecutors because they wouldn't give them the evidence they had a right to have, like the phone records. They withheld the phone records. They told them they couldn't speak to Diamond because she was only 16, which was her real age until just before the trial. And then just before the trial, now she's 19-year-old Rachel Gentile comes in and says, oh, I lied about my name, I lied about my age, I lied about going to the hospital. So there was some malfeasance on the prosecution, I'm sure.
Oh, sure. So back to understand, because we're going to get to Zimmerman's lawsuit, but it's very clear that, at least for sure, Trayvon Martin's mother knew that the woman sitting there in the trial, testifying as though she was Trayvon's girlfriend, she was the one on the phone with him, and she's telling the story that the Trayvon Martin family wanted told, which was Trayvon suddenly attacked, and this girl's telling the story. Trayvon's mother had to know, because she's looking at her in trial, she knows that this is a hoaxed witness. This is not Trayvon's girlfriend, right? She knew.
Absolutely. Look, Rachel Gentile is about 150 pounds heavier, taller. Sabrina Fulton had received a letter that was signed by Diamond Eugene, directly from Diamond Eugene. I had a handwriting expert look at it. I got all the handwriting samples. She knew it was a fake witness, and she allowed the interview to go forward with Rachel Gentile. She allowed the trial to go forward. So we talked about that in the film, but it was a hoax, and how it divided the country is one of the themes of the film, and how hopefully when people see this was a hoax, maybe some healing can begin. I get most emails are from black teenagers, and they say, look, we knew Rachel wasn't the girlfriend. And they say, number two, one gal said, I have a black son, and I was afraid for him to grow up in America. But now I saw your movie, and I realized we got played. Thank you. Thank you. That's the most gratifying email I got.
That is very, very powerful. I was going to say, to summarize again what you did, and then we're going to turn to Zimmerman and then what can happen in America. But the kind of investigation you did, as you say, without subpoena power, you looked at phone records. So there you are. And I was going to say, the Trayvon, right there you can see is holding up both the Trayvon hoax book and Trayvon hoax DVD, both of which we have at home. I'll confess, it was a very busy day and I ran out of the house without them. I was going to have them right here, but life gets busy. Anyway, back to this. So what you could do without subpoena power, you're able to look at the phone records, able to see pictures, recognize that the person who testified in trial as Trayvon's girlfriend was not Trayvon's girlfriend. You were able ultimately also to track her down, the real girlfriend down, the real young girl, Diamond Eugene, and get to her. And then, so that allowed you to expose it all. And I just want to make the point that if you're a prosecutor, and you have a duty not to suborn perjury, you have a duty to actually investigate a case thoroughly before you put someone on trial. And Zimmerman was on trial. I think he was facing life in prison. And you let all this go, and only for the fortune that you, Joel Gilbert, came along and decided, I'm going to look into this. Is there even now truth coming out about the fact that George Zimmerman was so wrongly accused, and that too many people were involved in knowing he's wrongly accused? So I commend you so much for what you did. I want to turn to Zimmerman's lawsuit. Now, let me state the obvious. Zimmerman was acquitted. I mean, the jury, I guess, saw through this hoax that the prosecutors put on. So why should Zimmerman be filing a lawsuit now? It's years later. You know, he was acquitted. He's not in prison. What's he filing a lawsuit about?
Well, I've read the lawsuit, of course, and look, he's filing a lawsuit for false prosecution. No one should be prosecuted because of a false witness. It's in the Bible. It's in the Constitution. I think it's violation of constitutional rights. Obviously, he had told me it's in the movie. By the way, he's in the film, and he did not even testify in his own trial. He talks about exactly how devastating it was for him that he had taken a life. And because he was actually mentoring kids whose parents were in prison. He was an Obama supporter, social activist, Hispanic kid. But just putting him through the trial and then the amount of negativity and death threats and hatred that has come his way pretty much ruined his life. He can't circulate in public. He has to wear disguises to this day. Someone tried to kill him last year, got 20 years in prison. There's rap songs and social media rants against him every day that he should be dead. So they pretty much ruined his life. He's got severe PTSD, and he's trying to get restitution, much like Nicholas Sandman or Devin Nunes. I think he wrote an article in American Thinker that he's looking to make a statement, as much as he cares about any money, that you can't persecute people with false witnesses and use the judiciary against citizens that were already exonerated. He was exonerated by a thorough investigation. Had it not been for Rachel Gentelford, this fake witness that came and told a made-to-order storyline, and the cooperation of the system, which I think knew very well she was a fake, including the media, which made no effort to figure this out, that's what he's trying to accomplish, I believe.
So Zimmerman is suing. George Zimmerman is suing the parents. He's suing the dad of Trayvon Martin, Tracy Martin, suing the mom, Sabrina. Let's forget her name. Sabrina Fulton, suing Rachel Gentile, who was the 19-year-old posing as a 16-year-old, the one who actually testified, suing the prosecutors. And suing two net prosecutors by name, and also suing the Sanford police. Isn't he also suing the police department? So he's suing everybody for $100 million.
Yeah, including Brittany Diamond Eugene, the real phone witness as well.
The real one, yeah. So for $100 million. So first of all, I would say just clearing your name. If you were a private citizen and no one else ever heard about this case, you'd be outraged if you were the victim of what George Zimmerman was. If you were set up, if you were prosecuted for something that you did when you did nothing wrong and you were prosecuted anyway, you might, even if the case wasn't one of national import, you might sue. But this is a case where George Zimmerman's name, everybody knows his name. Everyone, as soon as you say his name, oh yeah, the guy that killed Trayvon Martin. I can truly believe what you say. He feels like his life was destroyed by this case, and his ability to move forward, to find jobs, to just have a new life has really been utterly destroyed.
Correct. Look, he said that he not only was his life destroyed, his family is still in hiding. He's in hiding. He has severe PTSD. He literally cannot walk around in public without fear of being attacked, as he was last year. And I think he feels just even more horror that in his name, Black Lives Matter was formed, that police were killed, that so much negativity has gone on. So I think he sees the bigger picture as much as he's looking at his own, clearing his own name.
Well, the other thing I really wanted to commend and then have you talk about some more is you've been really good about, Joel Gilbert, you did the investigation, you made the documentary film, you wrote the book, you've been speaking everywhere, but you're not just speaking about correcting the record and exposing a false witness and further vindicating George Zimmerman. You've really been great about talking about the impact on America from this entire prosecution, from the astonishing media storm that occurred after the death occurred, and then we had I think it was Million Hoodie March in Washington. There weren't really a million people, but they called it the Million Hoodie March. And the damage to America's culture and fabric and police department. And I just love that you're exposing that too. So I'd love to have you talk about that, what damage flowed from it, and then also what do you think could come out of this for America as we become more familiar with the truth about Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman?
Well, I think, first of all, that no one has suffered more from what I call the Trayvon hoax than the black youth of America. The Trayvon hoax is two things. It's the substitution of a legitimate phone witness who did hear what was going on just prior to this incident, which was Brittany Diamond Eugene, for a fake witness, Rachel Juntel, who told a made-to-order storyline to get Zimmerman arrested. The Trayvon hoax is also the name I give to the hoax that the media plays on Black Americans every day, which is that America is racist, so you better seek shelter on the left and vote for Democrats because of the hate out there for you, that there are armed white men in the streets and police that will shoot you because of your skin color. And the real lesson of the film is not that there's armed white men in the streets looking for you, but that there's a lack of strong Black men in the home to give guidance. Trayvon, his real story I show in the film, and it's very, it's a teachable moment. He had lost his own stepmother because his father divorced his stepmother of 14 years, Alicia Stanley. And so that was November 2011, he had to go back and live with his biological Sabrina Fulton, who kept kicking him out every time he got in trouble, and he would start acting out and fighting and getting into heavy marijuana use, dealing guns, and he kind of went in this downhill spiral. So I even show in the film, he was not a bad kid, he was an average kid, not a thug, but he got into all these behaviors that were very dangerous. It could be a teachable moment, but his legacy was stolen by left-wing activists for this political agenda to divide the country and to control the way Black voters look at America. So, of course, Black Lives Matter was formed because of this. If you look at Black Lives Matter, their agenda is things like transgenderism, globalism, nothing to do with helping Black Americans, nothing to do with civil rights. Civil rights movement was not supposed to be built on hoaxes and ruses. And that's what they're trying to do, really to achieve an agenda that doesn't help Black Americans. So this movie kind of exposes the downhill spiral of race relations since then. It was both Black and white said that race relations were positive back in 2012. We had a Black president, most people very proud of that, even if you didn't agree with politics. And it just went negative ever since because of this case. And this film shows that the original ground zero for this nonsense was a hoax. I grew up in Tennessee in the 80s, Black and white kids all together. I had Black friends because I liked their character. There were some white friends I had and some white friends I didn't have because I didn't like their character. It was all about the strength of the character. Nobody cared about your skin tone. So the media took up this narrative that 40 years later, all of a sudden America is racist. Well, where's the racism? Oh, it's in the system. Where is it? Oh, it's in your DNA, according to Obama and Reverend Jeremiah Wright. So this is total nonsense that divided us for no reason. And we really were fooled. This was an epic race hoax. Al Sharpton was in on it, and a lot of people were in on it, starting with understanding the witness was fraudulent. And there are tragic incidences in America with police, with altercations, road rage, but it's not because of racism and that all of America is racist. They're because individuals make stupid mistakes sometimes. And to say that that should divide us is wrong. I say we're all brothers. Americans are all brothers, Black and white, under the Constitution in a great nation of liberty. And we should not let ourselves be divided for no reason over tragic incidences like this. In the end, Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman have a lot in common. They were both used for this political agenda to divide the country. And I think this movie just tells the whole story. And I hope everyone, start with the trailer. It's, thetrayvonhoax.com.
Just going to ask you in closing, the name of the website that goes, thetrayvonhoax.com. You can order this video. My husband and I ordered it even before the first time I had you on, and I got the book. There he has them right there. Thank you for having those. Yeah, anyway, love that you have them both. It's a really interesting thing for America to deal with these kind of past instances that cause so much division in our country. And I think some people might argue, George Zimmerman, why doesn't he just be quiet and go away? Why do we have to stir all this up again? In fact, I had listeners to the show that said, why stir all this up again? Let it go. But the thing is, it hurt America so much, and to have truth come out about the real case, the real fraud perpetrated on America, and the efforts of some people on the left to use this case for political gain, all those things are actually healing steps. exposing truth, understanding what's real, and really calling to the attention of the American people things that happened that weren't right, so we learn the correct lessons about America. And so thank you so very much for making the movie and the book, and thank you, Joel Gilbert.
Thanks so much.
Great to have you on. I got to tell you, folks, I couldn't get to all my questions. I'm going to make a couple other points. I've been in touch with him a little bit. I know some people are saying, okay, but isn't it true that George Zimmerman, the night of the incident, when he called into the police, said, and they said to him, don't get out of your car, stay there. I believe that to be true. I believe his answer was, later was, if I could have changed anything, I wouldn't have gotten out of the car. He just thought he was doing his job as a neighborhood watch person. He thought this person looked suspicious. And once he got out of the car, it was kind of the decision, the die was cast. There was no way to undo that decision. I think he has said, I wish I had never gotten out of the car, but he did. And so we are where we are today. But I think the important thing for America to understand, so much racial hatred, so much racial suspicion, racial resentment, so much political gain by so many on the American left in endlessly making reference to Trayvon Martin case, as though the case stands for the idea that a young black man could be innocently killed for no reason at all, and that the country is filled with racist police officers. And, to be clear, George Zimmerman isn't white. He is Hispanic. George Zimmerman wasn't a police officer. He was a neighborhood watch guy. He was more or less a Democrat. I mean, he voted for Obama. So this is this guy but the whole story got contorted in a way and was used by people to divide America. So even if the scars are still tender, and I'm terribly sorry for any family who ever loses a child for any reason whatsoever, it's just always excruciating and painful, but it does not mean we should let a lie sit. What happened to George Zimmerman in the hands of the prosecutors was a lie. They let him sit there in a courtroom, put on a fake witness, all to perpetuate the left-wing mission and story that the Martin family wanted to put out, and it wasn't true. And it matters to get the facts on the record, and it matters that George Zimmerman should have some chance to clear his name, which is what he's trying to do by this lawsuit. So we'll say, and I'll keep you updated as I hear more on the lawsuit. I'm sure many of the defendants are trying to think of if they can possibly get this case dismissed without going forward. I'll keep you posted on that.